man who is still legally married to one of the most respected female rappers in hip-hop history just sat down on a podcast, slid a pair of dark sunglasses onto his face so the cameras could not read his expression, and declared to the world that the woman he is publicly entangled with, while his wife of nearly 2 decades waits for a divorce that has no court dates, no dockets, and no traction, is the best thing that has ever happened to him. Not his 4 children. Not the woman who married him over the phone while she was sitting in a prison cell. Not the woman who renewed her vows with him and birthed his child. The side piece. And he said it from behind tinted lenses because even he knows that the truth always lives behind the eyes, and his eyes would have told on him before his mouth ever finished the sentence. Everything you have been watching about Papoose and Claressa Shields has been framed as a love story, as black love, as a fresh start, as 2 people who found each other against the odds. It is not a love story. It is a transaction with a soundtrack. And the reason nobody has been able to figure out why this keeps going, why Pap keeps appearing on every podcast that will have him gushing about a woman he will not even bother to finalize a divorce for, is because everybody has been watching the wrong person. They have been watching Claressa. They should have been watching the money. Because there is a direct line between the interview clips Papoose has been dropping across the podcast circuit, the public declarations he has been making with his eyes hidden, and the financial arrangement that allegedly keeps a nearly 50-year-old rapper attached to a boxing champion who funds his lifestyle while his actual wife, Remy, the woman who held him down, who built a career beside him, who survived prison and came home and still chose him, is out here thriving without him, dropping diss tracks that are methodically dismantling every lie he has ever told in public. When we get to the breakdown of why Papoose's own words in this latest interview contradict everything he has done for the last 2 years, and I promise you we are getting there, you are going to understand why this was never about love, was never about black love, was never about anything except a man who lost his meal ticket and found a new one wearing boxing gloves. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Okay, so let me set the stage because there is a lot of ground to cover, and this story did not start where you think it did. Papoose, born Shamil Mackey, is a Brooklyn rapper who has been in the game for over 2 decades, known for his lyrical ability, his mixtape grind, his association with the late DJ K-Slay, and most significantly, his relationship with Remy Ma. Remy Ma, born Reminisce Smith, is a Grammy-nominated rapper, a Terror Squad alum, and one of the most respected female lyricists in the history of the genre. These 2 met back in 2004 in New York City while collaborating on a song, and their professional relationship evolved into a romantic one. When Remy Ma was sentenced to 6 years in prison for assault in 2007, Papoose did something rare. He held her down. He visited her. He married her over the phone while she was incarcerated. He waited. When she came home in 2014, they renewed their vows in 2016 and welcomed their daughter, Reminisce Mackenzie, in 2018. For years, Papoose and Remy Ma were presented to the public as the gold standard of hip-hop romance, the loyal husband who waited, the reformed queen who came home and rebuilt, the couple who survived the worst and came out stronger. That was the narrative. That was the brand. And for a long time, the culture bought it completely, because it was a good story, a redemptive story, a story that made people feel good about loyalty and standing by someone through the darkest moments of their life. Nobody questioned it. Nobody probed it. Nobody looked underneath the surface to see whether the brand matched the reality. But then the story unraveled. Rumors began circulating around 2022 that Remy Ma had been involved with battle rapper Easy the Block Captain. By late 2024, Remy took to social media and accused Papoose of stepping out on their marriage with Claressa Shields, a 3-division world champion boxer, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and arguably the greatest female boxer of all time. She is younger, she is wealthy, she is accomplished, and she is allegedly in a relationship with a man who is still, as of this moment, legally married to another woman. Papoose and Claressa made their relationship public shortly after the drama exploded. Pap eventually filed for divorce in May of 2025, posting legal documents on his Instagram after a public dispute with Remy, claiming she had cheated on him numerous times after her release from prison. But here is where it gets critical. As of right now, there is no evidence that this divorce has been finalized. No court dockets showing active proceedings. No hearing dates. No finalized divorce decree. Papoose filed papers, posted them on Instagram for the optics, and then silence on the legal front while performing on the public front. And that gap between what was filed for show and what has actually been resolved in a courtroom is the space where every lie in this latest interview lives. So the question is not whether Papoose loves Claressa Shields. The question is why a man who claims this woman is the best thing that ever happened to him will not do the one simple, bare minimum thing that would prove it. Finalize the divorce. And that question is what this entire video is going to answer. Now let us get into the evidence, because the first piece is the clip itself. Papoose appeared on the Danza Project, and during the interview, he was asked about his relationship with Claressa, specifically about the scrutiny, the rumors, the negativity, and how the journey has been. And Papoose, sitting there with a pair of sunglasses on indoors, responded by saying, "Claressa is the best thing that ever happened to me, man." Stop right there. The man was asked a direct question about how he is dealing with the public scrutiny and the criticism. And instead of answering any of that, he pivoted to a rehearsed declaration of love. He did not address the criticism. He did not address the rumors. He did not address the fact that the internet drags this relationship through the mud daily. He just said she is the best thing that ever happened to him and moved on. Does everybody understand how crazy that actually is? You are being asked about the controversy, and your response is to recite a love poem? That is not answering a question. That is auditioning. That is a man who has been coached to deflect and redirect. And he did it with sunglasses on so you could not see whether his eyes matched his mouth. The second piece of evidence is something I do not think enough people caught. Listen carefully to what Papoose said after that initial declaration. He said, "Definitely one of the best things that ever happened in my life." Did you catch the correction? He went from saying Claressa is the best thing that ever happened to him to saying she is one of the best things that has happened in his life. Now, some people might say that is just a natural way of speaking. But think about what that correction reveals. In the first statement, he is making an absolute declaration. She is the best. In the second, he is creating distance. She is one of the best. That is not a slip of the tongue. That is his subconscious pulling the emergency brake. Because even Papoose realized the absurdity of saying a woman he has been publicly involved with for roughly a year is the best thing that ever happened to him, when he has 4 children and a wife of nearly 2 decades. His own brain caught the lie and softened it in real time. The third piece of evidence is the pause. After saying Claressa is very beautiful, very outgoing, Papoose stopped. He hesitated. Then he came back with so much love, man, so much fun, smart. That pause is the most honest moment in the entire clip. And it is honest precisely because it was unintentional. When you speak from genuine emotion, the words flow. When you recite a script, your brain has to load the next line. In that pause, you could see the machinery working. A man reaching for the next adjective on the list. Beautiful, check. Outgoing, check. Pause. What else? Love. Fun. Smart. He was reading from a mental checklist, not speaking from the heart. And the sunglasses made it worse, because the one thing that might have humanized the moment, his eyes, were hidden. You are left with nothing but words that sound rehearsed, and a correction that sounds like a lie being walked back in real time. The fourth piece of evidence is the broader pattern of Papoose's media appearances, because this Danza Project clip is not isolated. Papoose has been on a podcast tour that would make a politician blush, Vlad TV, for a multi-part interview, The Breakfast Club, XXL's Talk It Up series, Revolt, and more. And in every appearance, the pattern is the same. He gushes about Claressa, he deflects questions about the controversy, and he never once addresses that he is still legally married. Not one host has said, "Pap, you filed over a year ago. Why is there no final decree?" That is not an accident. That is a media ecosystem that has decided it is more profitable to let the drama play out than to ask the one question that would end the performance. Papoose knows that as long as he shows up, gives them a good clip, and says something gushy about Claressa, they will not push him on the paperwork. So the cycle continues. Podcast, clip, gush, deflect, next podcast, next clip, next gush. It is a loop, and the loop exists because nobody in the media chair has the integrity to break it. And oh, do I have more for you. Because if you thought the podcast clips were the extent of this, if you thought this was just a man performing on camera, you are not ready for what is happening in the cultural space around this situation. The stands, the people who have been caping for this relationship, calling it black love, defending Papoose and Claressa against all criticism, are really not going to like what comes next. Because Remy has not been quiet. She has not been sitting in a corner watching this unfold. She has been working, recording, and saying things on wax that make every single one of Papoose's podcast declarations sound like a kindergarten poem. We are about to get into the cultural evidence, the industry reactions, the social media fallout, and the diss tracks that are exposing this entire situation for exactly what it is. So let us get into the cultural layer, because this is where the story shifts from gossip into something much bigger. The first piece of cultural evidence is Remy Ma's diss track W.Y.F.L, which stands for W.Y.F. Can Lie, a direct, loaded attack on both Papoose and Claressa Shields. According to Complex, Remy used the song to address claims that Papoose wrote her bars while going directly at Claressa. The lyrics are brutal and precise, built on specifics, not generic insults. She references actual events, actual behaviors, actual things Papoose has said publicly. One of the most discussed bars, debated heavily on Reddit r/ifapeds, includes a line where Remy references knowing how Pap's neck work, a dual jab at Claressa's habit of speaking sideways about Remy, and a deeply personal reference to the intimacy Remy shared with Papoose during their marriage. It is the kind of line that makes you wince because it is so specific, so rooted in 2 decades of lived experience, that no podcast gushing can compete with it. You cannot counter a diss track built on 20 years of real relationship with a clip of a man in sunglasses saying she is outgoing. Can we just be honest about that? The second piece is Remy Ma's appearance on Connie Diamond's track Head Tap, reported by Vibe. On this record, Remy took direct aim at Claressa, with lyrics referencing the multiple times Claressa has publicly offered to square up and fight her. Remy rapped, "You number 2, and you mad I'm the one," and made clear she was not interested in a physical altercation. But what is significant is the positioning. Remy is not just dissing Claressa. She is establishing a hierarchy. She is saying she is the original, the one, and Claressa is number 2. And in the context of a relationship where Papoose is still legally married to Remy, that positioning is not just a rap bar. It is a factual statement. As long as that divorce is not finalized, Claressa is, by definition, number 2 in the eyes of the law. Remy knows this. Pap knows this. And Claressa knows this, which is why she keeps responding, keeps defending, keeps posting, keeps insisting that Pap is right here and they are happy. The insecurity leaks through every single post. Does Claressa realize how that looks from the outside? The third piece is the Ever Since You Left Me remix by French Montana and Max B, which featured Remy Ma and was reported by The Shade Room. Remy dropped a line that went viral instantly. Always the one, never the two. Told him find something stupid to play with, he'd pick you. The internet caught it immediately, and the Shade Room's comment section exploded. Claressa herself confirmed it was about her by responding on X with a post demanding to be named directly. Just say my name like Destiny's Child, and insisting she would diss anybody back. Now I want to introduce a moment of nuance, because Claressa has a point. If you're going to diss someone, say their name. That is a legitimate hip-hop standard. But here is where that argument collapses. The reason Remy does not need to say Claressa's name is because the entire hip-hop community already knows who the bars are about. The subliminal works precisely because the context is so public that naming her would be redundant. Remy is not being cowardly. She is being surgical. She is letting the audience fill in the blank because the blank is already filled by reality. And Claressa's response, demanding to be named, posting hashtags, insisting she is not pressed, reads less like confidence and more like a woman deeply uncomfortable with the fact that the culture has already chosen a side. The fourth piece is the social media reaction, and this is where the cultural shift becomes undeniable. When the Shade Room posted about Claressa's response, the comment section was a graveyard for the Claressa Papoose narrative. User after user sided with Remy. One wrote that if someone got called stupid in a rap but no names were mentioned, they would not think it was about them because they are not stupid. Let that sink in. Another wrote, a hit dog gonna holler every time. Another, I love how my girl Remy ain't gotta say nothing. Another, meanwhile Pap's still married. And the one that captured the public sentiment. Claressa baby I love you, but leave that man wife alone please. The community has spoken, and it is not buying what Papoose is selling. These comments represent a cultural consensus that has been building for over a year. People respected Papoose and Remy together. People saw him as the loyal husband who waited. And now that same audience watches him sit on podcasts in sunglasses gushing about a woman who is not his wife, while his wife drops bars praised across the hip-hop community. The cultural tide turned a long time ago. Pap's podcast tour is not changing minds. It is giving people more material to mock. And with that, we need to shift gears, because what is really happening here goes way beyond podcasts and diss tracks. Now we are getting into the real conversation, the one that separates this channel from basic reaction content. What I want everybody to understand is that this situation is not just about one man lying on a podcast. This is about a system, multiple interconnected systems, that have created the conditions for this circus to exist and persist. And I want to break this down across 3 separate angles. The first systemic angle is the financial arrangement. What I think is happening, my analysis based on publicly available information, is that Papoose has positioned himself as a professional companion and hype man for Claressa Shields. And this arrangement serves a financial function beyond romantic partnership. Look at the facts. Papoose has a weekly spot on Rock the Bells on SiriusXM and an executive role as head of hip-hop at Win Records. Those are real positions. But outside of those, what is his primary public activity? Promoting Claressa Shields, hyping her on social media, appearing beside her at events, giving interviews where he gushes about her. It is, functionally, a brand management and promotional role dressed up as romance. And when you consider that Claressa is a multi-million-dollar athlete, she has openly called herself the $8 million woman, and that Papoose's own music career has not generated significant commercial revenue in years, the financial dynamic becomes impossible to ignore. I am not saying Claressa is directly paying Papoose a salary. I am saying that when a man with limited independent income is in a relationship with a wealthy woman, and his primary public activity is promoting that woman, and he has abandoned his previous life to do so, the financial incentive structure is glaring. Combine that with the fact that he has not finalized his divorce, which means he has not had to engage with the financial dissolution of a marriage of nearly 2 decades, the asset division, the potential alimony. And you start to see why the delay might not be accidental. A man living comfortably on someone else's income has no urgent incentive to finalize a divorce that might result in him owing money to the woman he left. The delay is a feature, not a bug. Does everybody see how that works? The second systemic angle is the media ecosystem that enables this. And this is the part that frustrates me most as someone who watches this industry closely. The podcast circuit, Vlad TV, The Danza Project, The Breakfast Club, XXL, Revolt, has created an attention economy where controversy is currency and integrity is a cost center. These platforms know Papoose is still married. They know the divorce is not finalized. Yet they book him, let him gush about Claressa, let him deflect, and never press him on the one question that matters. Why is the divorce not done? Because the unresolved drama drives views, and views drive revenue. If any host said, "Pap, you filed over a year ago. There are no court dockets. Can you explain why this divorce has not been finalized?" That would be the last interview Papoose gives on that platform, because he cannot answer honestly without exposing the arrangement. The platforms know this, which is why they do not ask. They have made a calculated decision. It is more profitable to let the drama simmer than to ask the one question that would end the show. This is not journalism. This is content farming. And Papoose is the crop. The entire podcast economy around hip-hop has devolved into a system where the most valuable guest is not the one with the most interesting story. It is the one with the most unresolved drama, because unresolved drama produces infinite clips, and clips produce revenue. I know some people will say these hosts are just doing their jobs, that it is not their place to press him on his divorce. But that cop-out is exactly what keeps this system running. When you give a platform to a man performing a relationship while legally married to someone else, and you do not ask the obvious question, you are not neutral. You are complicit. Does anyone in the media actually care about the truth anymore? Or is it all just about the clip? The third systemic angle is the historical context, the pattern nobody is talking about. What Papoose is doing is not new. Attaching himself to a more successful, wealthier woman, and rebranding that attachment as love is a pattern that has existed in entertainment for decades, where men with fading cultural relevance latch onto women with rising financial power and convert that proximity into personal platform. Hip-hop specifically has a complicated relationship with this dynamic because the culture has historically celebrated men as providers, which means that when a male rapper is in a relationship where the woman is the primary financial engine, the culture reads it differently than the reverse. When a male rapper provides, he is praised. When a female rapper provides for a male partner, he is questioned. And that double standard is exactly what Papoose is exploiting. He is counting on the culture to read his relationship with Claressa as love rather than logistics. He is counting on people to see a man gushing about his girlfriend and not ask who is paying for the lifestyle. And for a while it worked. But the culture is always smarter than the people trying to manipulate it. Over the last year, the cultural consensus shifted, not because anyone forced it, but because the evidence accumulated until the romantic framing could no longer sustain itself against the financial reality. The podcasts, the sunglasses, the rehearsed declarations, the failure to finalize the divorce, it all added up, and the culture did the math. And the math does not favor Papoose. So here it is. Here is the truth bomb that everything has been building toward. And I want you to hear this clearly. Papoose does not love Claressa Shields the way he claims to. What Papoose loves is what Claressa Shields provides. He loves the platform. He loves the attention. He loves the access. He loves the fact that being connected to the greatest female boxer of all time gets him seats at the VMAs, bookings on podcasts, interviews with XXL, clips on Vlad TV, segments on the Danza Project. He loves the infrastructure that Claressa's fame and wealth and status provide for a man whose own cultural relevance has been fading for years. And the proof is not in what he says. It is in what he does not do. He does not finalize the divorce. He does not remove the Remy Ma tattoo. He does not delete the old Instagram posts about his wife. He does not answer questions about the controversy. He does not address the criticism. He does not engage with the fact that the culture has rejected his narrative. He does none of these things because doing any of them would either commit him to a path he is not ready to walk or expose an arrangement he is not ready to have examined. Instead, he puts on sunglasses, sits in a podcast chair, and recites adjectives. Beautiful, outgoing, smart, fun, love. Check, 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 check. That is not a man in love. That is a man reading a script. And the script exists because the performance is the product. It is what keeps the podcast bookings coming, what keeps the clips circulating, what keeps the audience engaged. And the engagement is what keeps the arrangement viable. Because the moment Papoose stops performing, stops gushing, stops hyping, stops appearing, is the moment the value proposition diminishes. And when the value diminishes, the arrangement ends. That is not love. Love does not require sustained performance to maintain viability. Love does not need a podcast tour to prove its existence. Love does not hide behind sunglasses. Love does not correct itself from the best thing to one of the best things in real time. Love does not pause between adjectives because the speaker cannot remember the next line. What Papoose is doing is not declaring love. He is maintaining an arrangement. And the arrangement will continue for exactly as long as it is financially and culturally beneficial, and not 1 second longer. I said this in a previous video, and I will say it again. Watch what they do, not what they say. Papoose says Claressa is the best thing that ever happened to him. Papoose does not finalize his divorce. Those two facts cannot coexist in a narrative of genuine love. One is the truth. One is the performance. And the sunglasses tell you which is which. Can we finally stop pretending this is anything other than what it is? And this brings me to the hero of this story, because there is one, and her name is Remy Ma. While Papoose has been sitting in podcast chairs wearing sunglasses and reciting adjectives, Remy Ma has been doing something that requires no performance, no rehearsal, and no tinted lenses. She has been winning. Let us walk through what has actually happened to Remy Ma over the last year. She was publicly betrayed. Her marriage was dismantled in front of the entire internet. Her husband took up with a younger, wealthier woman and paraded that relationship across every media platform that would have him. And instead of collapsing, instead of hiding, instead of putting on sunglasses and reciting a script, Remy Ma went to the studio. She dropped W.Y.F.L, a diss track praised across the hip-hop community for its bars, its specificity, and its emotional precision. She appeared on Connie Diamond's Head Tap and delivered a verse that reminded everyone why she is one of the most respected female lyricists in history. She appeared on the Ever Since You Left Me remix and dropped a subliminal so surgical the entire internet caught it instantly. She did not need a podcast tour. She did not need to gush about a new partner. She did not need to perform love for the cameras. She just worked. She just rapped. And the culture responded. The Shade Room comments sided with her. The Reddit threads praised her bars. The hip-hop community rallied behind her. Not because she asked them to, but because the evidence spoke for itself. One person is in the studio making music. The other is on a podcast making declarations. One person is building a career post-breakup. The other is building a narrative post-breakup. While the Sunglasses Hype Man is performing love on the Danza Project, the Queen is performing excellence on Wax. While the Entanglement King is correcting himself from the best thing to one of the best things, Remy is correcting the record with precision and power. While Pap is glazing his benefactor to keep the arrangement viable, Remy is glazing the microphone with bars that will outlast every podcast clip Pap has ever recorded. The right person is winning. The right person has been winning this entire time. And the reason is not luck or karma. It is because discipline and integrity and talent always outlast performance and proximity and schemes. Remy Ma does not need to sit in a chair and declare that she is great. Her work declares it for her. And that is the difference between a hero and a villain in this story. The hero's actions speak. The villain's words speak. And in the end, the actions always outlast the words. If you have made it to this point in the video, you already know which side of that line the truth falls on. And if you are still unsure, the person who does not need sunglasses to speak their truth is always the person telling the truth. Now this is only the start, because this story is not over, not by a long shot. There are at least 2 developments coming that you need to be watching for. The first is the divorce status. At some point, either Papoose is going to have to finalize this divorce, or someone, Remy, the media, the culture, is going to force the conversation about why he is not. And when that moment comes, every podcast clip, every sunglasses interview, every best thing that ever happened to me declaration is going to be replayed in a completely different context. The second is Remy Ma's next move musically. If W.Y.F.L. and the Head Tap verse and the Ever Since You Left Me remix were just opening rounds, what happens when she drops a full project? What happens when the Queen of New York decides she is not just dropping diss tracks, but building a body of work that is coming, and when it arrives, it is going to reframe this entire narrative one more time. So if you are not subscribed, fix that right now, because I am going to be here for every single development, every clip, every track, every court filing, and every lie told behind a pair of sunglasses. And if you think this video was something, the next one is going to be even bigger. Because there is a conversation happening right now about what happens when a hip-hop marriage ends and the culture has to decide who gets to keep the narrative. And the answer is going to shock a lot of people. Stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.